Hey guys, welcome back. It's Free Tip Friday. This week's tip is how to change helical cutter blades. I know there's not that many people that have helical cutter heads in their planer because they're ridiculously expensive, but I happened to get this one used and it had a helical cutter head and I'm super pumped on it. But when it comes to changing the blades, takes a long time because there's a bajillion blades. Pretty sure there's 4 sets of blades and each set has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 blades. So that's 60 blades that you got to flip around. The nice thing about these ones is they are double-sided. So you just pull out the little block in here. It's like a wedge. And then there's a little carbide cutter head. It's got double-sided the sides on it, so you get 2 uses out of each blade, and these little pins on here that kind of hold it in rough shape here. They move around on those pins, but the head itself is precision machined. So all you have to do is take the little blade out. Make sure there's no sawdust in the hole, and then you just slide the piece back in with the blade flipped and just push the blade right to the back, keeping downward pressure on it while you screw the nut back in. And the blades all overlap each other, so one blade's like this and the next one's like that, and so on. And so they're, there's a little bit of wiggle room back and forth in the block. Doesn't really matter as long as you get it kind of roughly in the center. Keep the blade kind of in the center of the block, and then you put pressure on it while you're tightening it down just to make sure it's hitting that back stopper. And then you give it one good turn. Don't over tighten it. You don't have to go crazy with the tightening. Just give it one good and that's about all it needs. Yeah, your screws should come undone with that one little click feel, Hear that? Click. And then the threads are loose. That's about how tight you want it. And then once you've done a set of blades, I just take my pencil and I mark a little thing so I know that row is finished, because you start spinning this thing around, you don't know where you started and where you finished. Here's a close-up of the blades here. It's like a block. It's got this little wedge slot there, and that sits on there. The blade moves around, but when you sit it into the slot, there's like a little bevel machined into the head here. So you just push the blade tight into the back, and it just sets itself. Now some of you might think, what the heck is the point of these helical cutter heads? Well, how does the spiral actually make it cut better? And the theory is that it's like using your chisel on a skew. And I wondered for a long time, why the hell does a chisel cut better when it's on a skew? It's still cutting the same amount of wood, but for some reason it cuts better when it's on an angle. Like it's the same chisel, it's the same wood. What's the deal? And the science behind it is that when you turn the bevel on an angle and you cut in that direction, you're actually reducing the angle of the bevel because you're cutting on an angle. So imagine yourself going down a ski slope, right? That's 45 degrees. It's super steep, and if you go straight down the ski slope, it's going to be crazy fast. But if you cut across the ski slope, you're actually reducing the angle of the slope, and so it's not so steep. And it's the same theory as using a beveled blade on a skew. And so what the helical cutter head does is it just cuts easier through the wood. It doesn't require as much power, and there's not as much back pressure from the wood because it's an easier cut. Yet the blades are still on a high bevel, and so they retain their edge because they're not ground on a steep angle that would dull really quickly. So you have tough blades that cut better than blades that are lined up straight with the wood. So that's your little lesson on blade technology for the week, and it's pretty much about all I know. So we'll come up with something else next week. Thought I might as well throw in another spare tip. You got fresh blades in your planer. The last thing you want to do is put a nick in one of them. So a good way to prevent nicks in your wood is to take your utility knife and cut a bevel on the back of the board. Just take your knife, trim it off. Because what often happens is when you get wood from the lumberyard, hopefully you're not putting, lumberyard wood through your planer that often, but when you're bringing wood home or wood that you don't know where it's been processed, a lot of times it's been dropped into the ground, and there's sand and little bits of rocks that get stuck in the end grain that you don't really see. And then when it goes through your planer, bing, on the end of the board, hits that rock, and that's how you get those nicks in your blade. Or if there's a rock actually embedded in the surface, right? So it doesn't really take much time, and it does extend the life of your blades. So just take your knife and shave off that top edge of your boards before you run them through the planer. Or put them on the chop saw and cut a fresh edge so that you know there's no gravel in your end grain. All right? There's your tip. I put out a new tip video every Friday, as well as a shop update on Wednesday, and project videos when they're completed. So make sure you're subscribed before you go. Please hit the like button, peep the website. We'll catch you next time. Samurai out.